Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are delighted to be joined by Brother Imran Gallo, one of the students of our Usul program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Imran.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sr Tasleema.
How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah, can't complain.
Alhamdulillah. Brother Imran, you have a different journey, and so I was hoping that today you could share that journey with us. So let's start with, who is Imran Gallo?
That's a two-part answer, Sr Tasleema, because the one part of Imran Gallo that was kind of had to be put away after my operations, and the part of Imran Gallo that Madina Institute knows, I barely know myself. But for the past year, I have slowly been understanding what it is that is, if I can say, needed from me by whom everybody knows the answer to that. So it is, Imran Gallo is just a person. If I can say Imran Gallo is an abd, that is it.
Subhanallah.
Imran Gallo he's not the career-driven person that he was anymore. What Imran Gallo is working for now is not even part of this world. So one thing I can say is that I'm grateful for that Madina is part of me finding the answers to who Imran Gallo is now, if I can say that.
Subhanallah. Let's start right to the start, Imran. Tell us about Imran born in this world. Who was that Imran, and when did the change happen? So you're obviously the son of the Gallos.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that. What area are you from?
So, born in Cape Town. My grandparents were of the Gallows of Park Road in Wynberg. My grandfather was a Gallo. My grandmother was from the Abrams family. When I was 5, we moved away up to Johannesburg. So for a very long time, I did not spend any time in Cape Town, apart from holidays when we used to come down to visit family. My complete schooling was done up in Johannesburg. And at the age of 15, I was diagnosed with glaucoma, which is a illness, it's actually a disease, but I'll call it an illness. It's an illness that affects the optic nerves, and unfortunately both of mine are affected, and thus began a journey of trying to save what there was. But even till today, you ask any eye specialist and they will tell you that glaucoma is an incurable illness. They can treat it, but cannot be cured. However, there is hope. Many a times you will hear people say, there's a cure for everything. Yeah, there is. The cure that I found for glaucoma is simply sabr. That is it. There's nothing else. Am I going to cry about losing one thing, or am I going to be grateful for the other 4 that I still have and that I can use now to a much greater degree? You start to, for lack of a better word, you start to see life differently when you can't, or when you can barely see. I can see color but no shape, so everything is pretty much blurred. I can tell you the couch is green, I can tell you the carpet is like a grey charcoal kind of color, but from where I'm sitting, they are on the same plane. It's just two colors next to each other. So depth is something that I struggle with. At the same time, I am literally unable to see the bigger picture because the illness of glaucoma, it diminishes eyesight from the outside in. There's another illness called macular degeneration, which is the adverse of glaucoma. It diminishes vision from the inside out. I think that's a lot worse though, because at least now my central vision is still, my peripheral is getting less, but you know, the focus is still where I know the focus to be. It's a learning curve, I suppose.
At the age of 15, it's a time when a young man is really developing into his adulthood. He has so many things that he's wanting to do. What do you remember that to be though? Once finding out that you now have this disease.
To put it honestly, not to get into the details because it's a 20-year-long conversation, but I'm fortunate that when I was diagnosed, I asked the doctors, tell me everything and anything that can go wrong, and they did. And at the age of 15, you have a choice to make, because you just found out that time's running out. Glaucoma is an illness that nobody knows when it's going to take exact effect. Nobody knows when it's going to be that day when I just can't see anymore. Nobody knows that. Glaucoma is often referred to as the thief of sight because you don't know when it's going to happen. It literally just happens. When the doctors told me that, look, you will be going blind, you, as a 15-year-old boy, there's a lot you have to give up. You have to give up social life. You give up sports because now you've got a medical condition that you've got to take extreme care of. If you think about it, the eyes are the only organs of the body that are exposed outside of the skeleton, if I can say that. So it's an extremely delicate part of the body. And all that you are geared towards is just, I need to look after these two things. Many a times you can ask any of the scholars, they will tell you a narration that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to people, where he said that a man worshipped Allah for 500 years, and when he went to get his judgment, or is going to get his judgment, Allah will tell him, okay, Allah is happy with him, enter into Jannah with my mercy. And the man will say, no, I don't want to be with your mercy, I want it to be with the deeds that I've done. So Allah said, okay, bring the scales. And on one side of the scales they place 500 years of worship. It is very difficult for me to say what they place on the other side of the scale, because I know the value of it. So what gets placed on the other side of the scale is just the ni'mah, the fact that that Allah allows you to be able to do that. Just that gets placed on the scale. And the 500 years of worship is weightless. So when you go through life having that understanding, who are you constantly aware of? Who allowed you to do what you do with these two things? It's the consciousness. But you don't develop that consciousness when you're 15. No. When you are 15, you chase the dunya. You want a good job. You want a house. You want a car. You want the luxuries of this life. Because time's running out. I want to experience this life. But Wallahu khairul makirin. Your plan is nothing compared to the plan of Allah. But you do what you do, and you make sure that whatever you are doing up to a point is done in accordance that would be pleasing to your Creator. A lot of the times I'm going to use the word transgress. You forget, you lack. You may be doing something, and because you are chasing something that is only of this world, you forget that, hey, 4:30, I've got to go do something. I've got a meeting 4:30 with my Creator, or I've got a meeting at sunset with my Creator. Before I go sleep, I've got a meeting with my Creator. And if I love my Creator so much, I'm going to get up from my sleep and beg Him for a meeting. You know, that comes later in life. But as a teenager, everything gets dumped into seeking knowledge, but seeking knowledge of this world. I'm fortunate for it because my journey of secular education was in the field of engineering, and at the same time in the category of design. And when you are a designer, you become an inventor, you become a creator, you know, and who is the ultimate creator? You know, it's small things like this that gets pieced together. So even the job that you want to do must always be in admiration of something else, or someone else, or another being, you know. And that was my understanding of why I decided to do engineering. Allah is the maker of the maker and everything that the maker makes. That is, I don't know how else to explain it. I think Sheikh Zaid can explain it in a better way, because I heard that from him. So just to paraphrase, I understand that statement because I myself was once someone who made things, but if you really had to think about Al-Khaliq as a creator, Allah creates from nothing. I create from the things that Allah has already made to put together. That is how I understand my journey in design and engineering.
May I ask?
Mm-hmm.
So, 15, you then continued completing school, and as we hear now, you went into engineering.
Yes.
Did you find that institutes were quite accommodating, that you had the necessary aids to be able to pursue these studies? I mean, people battle in most cases once they get to university to get the degree.
It doesn't happen immediately. Gradually, over time, I spent many years on medication trying to keep the pressures, the internal pressures, to a workable degree. But as you keep using your resources, they get diminished. So studying sometimes becomes 6 months and then you're out of order for a year. Now you go work. It becomes an issue when you go work because on one hand, I used to drive even with being diagnosed as a person with glaucoma, I could still drive because the illness was only discovered and is now being treated. Later on, it got to a point where I could no longer do normal things. But if you look at it through a lens of the institutes having everything, I was a normal child. whatever was there was more than enough. The textbooks were there. The only thing I had to do was be disciplined in my approach to my studies. You know, not to, if I told myself I'm going to spend Monday to Friday, boom, in work, you know, in studying. Saturdays maybe I would go, if I had a casual job, and Sundays I would be used for revision. So the times, your timetable changes drastically with this illness. No 2 days are the same. You know, I was listening to a lecture where someone said, any amount of studying, or there is no amount of studying that you can do, except that you need to use your eyes. Because you can't read without seeing.
Alhamdulillah, completed school, completed a degree. You approached eventually wanting to pursue further studies in Deen specifically. What brought you to that point? You said in the start it didn't, your eyesight didn't digress immediately. It was something that was gradual. What brought you to the decision to seek beneficial knowledge? And would this have been the first?
Many a times we don't understand the reason why we do things, but it is a desire to do something. It is a desire that I want that. I want to experience that. What is that like? You start to question things. I don't know how I can easily explain this, but the easiest way that I can maybe try to explain is that, what do you understand by a personal loss? I don't know what it's like to lose a parent. Alhamdulillah, I still have both of mine. I don't know what it's like to lose a child. I've never had one. But I do know my parents are overprotective about their children. I do know that. Even more so with me, because I'm not 100%, if you can understand that. Like, I know that no matter how old I am, I'm still my mother's child. She will always have that that level of protection towards you, regardless of how old you are. But if I honestly don't have the words for it. Your search, you want something of substance. You stand in salah, you ask, you utter these words that you've been taught all your life, but you don't, it's just lip service. You don't understand the meaning behind it. It's not enough to just listen to someone on YouTube, because someone on YouTube may not be in the same environment that you are. They may not be in the same country that you are. When I was learning, I was told that the only way to learn is to sit at the feet of a teacher, regardless of whether it is secular or religious knowledge. Because the people who transmit in front of you, in person, that is how knowledge is, because you can ask a question right there and then and get an answer. You can't do that in the YouTube comment section. You're not going to get that answer immediately, In many ways, I'm still very old school, but one thing I can say, that whatever brought me here, it was probably somehow related to, there is a message and there was a messenger sent. I know the messenger. I still don't understand the message. Someone explained to me the message. And I begged in my application letter to let me in here. I knew I didn't have what it takes to do the curriculum, but I just wanted a puzzle piece somewhere. And wallahi, I found a piece or many pieces of the puzzle in every one of my subjects. Even through just conversation, I found a puzzle piece. Through an act of something, I found a puzzle piece. Today I'm sitting with a complete puzzle, and my time, or let's say my presence in this building is not as frequent anymore, or cannot be as frequent anymore, if I can word it like that.
So let's talk about that. What has changed?
In terms of me not being here?
Maybe we should start just before that. So when you joined Madina Institute, it's not something as simple as a visual challenge.
No.
It's actually more to it. So tell us about that, and then what has happened along the year.
So I had my operations in 2018. I had to give up my career on the 9th of October 2018.
Was that in engineering?
Yeah. That is the day that I had to tell my company I can no longer work for you. They didn't tell me that. I need to leave. I had to make the choice to either save what I can or continue working, but within like 6 months or a year they won't be able to do anything. So I had to make that choice of save what I have. And it may be very light coming from my mouth, but I do believe that there is a level of taqwa that every decision is made with, because you can throw tawakkul around, but how often do you believe that? Like, yes, that's going to benefit me in this world, but my taqwa is benefiting me later on. Because of the strenuous study, I genuinely I put the Quran on the top shelf and I left it there for a while. Very long time. And during my recovery period,
This is after your operation.
after operations, during my recovery period, you hear the Quran differently. When you hear فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ, you hear it differently. You أَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّى أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْأَعْمَى, you hear that differently because you are part of the people that are being spoken about. And even the normal things, you know, I never realized that there was a surah called Surah Mujaddala until 2024. Why? Because I never bothered to read the entire Quran. I used to just read the Yasin and the Tabarak and the surahs from the end, Juz Amma. And that's all you read. From the time that I was 7 years old to the time that I was 36, the only surahs that I knew were from Qul Huwallahu Ahad to Wad-Duha, excluding Surah Bayna and Surah Alaq. Ramadan 2024, I memorized Surah Alaq. So, it's not linear. The journey is not linear. We're going to need a series of interviews for that journey.
So when you started Madina, what did you then, what would your focal areas then be?
Like I said, I wanted to know what the message was. my first Jummah at Madina Institute, Ustad Riyan said, how do we as a people understand the message if we don't understand the language of the messenger? And automatically Arabic became my focus. You know, why? Because firstly, the greatest textbook in creation is in Arabic. Every textbook that we study from is derived from that textbook. The hikams that you read is basically someone doing tadabbur of ayah or ayat and putting it in a few words so that you can think about it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُ الْقُرْآنِ? Do they not ponder about it? You know? These are the things that the puzzle pieces that I kept finding as I'm learning and understanding Arabic. And the rules, you know, you understand certain things a bit better now because, oh, that is there for that reason. That is a ma of negation versus this is a ma where is a question being asked, you know. It's these things that you have to, you can pick up 10 puzzle pieces in one lecture if you look for it. If you listen attentively, you go home, you search through your textbooks, you read an ayah the next morning in the Quran and boom, suddenly that puzzle that you couldn't finish now has 10 puzzle pieces in it. You have to literally be eager. It's got to become an addiction to seek, you know, that answer. You know, it's got to become an addiction. I am someone who, a very long time ago, a friend of my dad told me the first thing that Allah created was the pen. And the pen asked, my Lord, what should I write? And Allah told the pen, write everything. I am so attached to that creation. Because if you look at the status that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave writing, you kind of don't want to type on a keyboard. Because it's almost like, it's not, there's no connection. If I'm writing an alif, I am writing an alif. I am physical, what I am writing, noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun, that whatever you are writing is going to be a testimony for you. You write Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before an exam. That exam is going to testify for you because in the name of Allah, whatever knowledge I have, I am putting on this paper. I know I'm not going to get 0, but if there's one piece of information on there that is haqq, it's beneficial.
Imran, I want to share, earlier in the year when you had started, the class I had taken, I asked all of our students to write a letter to the Quran. Okay? And I'm going to just share it. It says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, O Book of Allah. Many moons ago, I somewhat lost touch with you. Dunya was prioritized and I placed you on the top shelf out of respect. In my current state, tranquility was found within your pages. I began to be intrigued by the flow of your rhythm. They were no longer just tongue movements and lip service. Within you, the purpose of life is clearly stated, your reminders deep and thought-provoking. Perhaps losing my sight expanded my vision. I am deeply remorseful for allowing you to be an ornament. I ask the permission of Allah to soften my heart and to allow you to be etched into my fabric of life. Your friend, Imran Gallo. Imran, having to hear me read out this letter that you wrote, And I need to say that I've seen your works, your Arabic calligraphy, your handwriting is absolutely beautiful. But having to hear this and to have constantly, throughout your life, gone through a number of tests, a number of changes, and it sounds to me, if I'm talking to you, it's like as normal happens, normal changes, and constantly changes. At the moment, your studies has once again changed, but alhamdulillah, you have chosen to continue with the Quran. What is your message to those that are watching this interview in terms of life's challenges? Because honestly, I think one of the biggest blindness that many of us suffer with is the blindness of the heart. And so when difficulty comes, and it does come, we could either go with positivity or we could go with negativity.
The answer to that, I don't know the ayah verbatim in Arabic, but I can give you the English. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do they think that if they say they believe, they will not be tested? Anybody's going to be tested. The more you believe, the more you're going to be tested. All the prophets, all the Anbiya, they were tested the most. However, there is not a single scenario that any human being will face except that there is a similar narration in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we narrate to you the stories of the prophets before you. Why? Because there are lessons in there. Whatever you are struggling with, you might have to read the whole Quran before you piece it together. But in the beginning, the very first few pages, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds in the next surah where He says, أَلِفْ لَامْ مِيمْ ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It is a guidance for those of you who are muttaqeen. Now, yeah, I'm still going down a rabbit hole of learning Arabic, but when you are muttaqeen, you have taqwa, and what is taqwa? You know, is it mindfulness? Is it consciousness? Is it God consciousness? Any one of those descriptions that you can use, it is that. So when you are mindful of Allah, Allah will be mindful of you. And there's a hadith for that. I can tell you now, it's hadith number 19 of the 40 of Imam Ninowy. Beautiful hadith. And if you really think about who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling these words to, he is telling it to, Maaf, correct me if I'm wrong, Abdullah ibn Abbas, who at the time was maybe 10 to 13 years old, more or less, purely because of the word used, ghulam. Ghulam is used for a young man, a boy. And scholars say that even though he received this hadith at that age, he only narrated it later in life. But imagine, you are 9 years old and someone plants the seed of taqwa. The messenger of Allah plants the seed of taqwa in you. What is your level of taqwa when you realize that these words changed my life so much, I have to share it? And there are so many hadith that anybody can do. There is a hadith that will apply to anybody if only they knew what they were looking for. And that is it. That your journey to becoming or being a student of Deen is not attending Madina from 8 till 3. Being a student of Deen has a lot more to do when you are outside, because when Aisha radiallahu anha was asked what was Rasulullah's character like, what did he say? His character was the Quran. So if you understand the etiquette of engaging with the Quran, you should know that when you are outside, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. Look at the advertisements on the side of the road. Distractions. call it that. You are focused. You know. I like to think of that ayah. I like to relate that ayah to when Nabi Ibrahim was saying, he didn't say I'm going there for my Lord. He said, I'm going to my Lord. So everything that you do, you are going to do for the pleasure of Allah. If I'm going to the shop, why? Because I'm going to buy bread and milk, and I'm going to say, Allah, alhamdulillah for the bread and milk that you gave me today. I was sitting earlier on outside with someone, and I asked them, we were having a conversation, and I said, if you woke up this morning and all you had with you was that which you thanked Allah for yesterday, how much would you have? Genuine question. Do people ask these questions nowadays? Do people still ask these questions? How do you purify your soul? How do you get rid of attachments to the dunya? I had to lose my eyesight. Put it this way, my gaze was lowered for me. You know, in another way, if you want to put it a bit more harsh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought His book right in front of me. Am I still going to choose to ignore it? Right in front of me. This is where I have to read the Quran now. Am I still going to ignore it? I don't know. A student at Madina asked me once. Wallahi, I love him for the sake of Allah. Very good friend of mine. And he asked me, do you think that if this didn't happen, you would still find yourself at Madina? I told him, I cannot answer that question because I am here simply for the fact that I was written that I have to be here. I gave myself a year. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me 8 months. We plan and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. I don't know if Sr Tasleema recalls, but I told you on the in a voice message that whatever tools I have gained, I am putting to absolute good use. And I hope one day that you will go through the product that I made using those tools. It's sitting with Ustad Rehan currently. So I hope you maybe go through that one day.
I definitely will make the time for that. But Imran, we tend to believe that whoever comes into Medina also stays with Medina. And so you are part of the Medina family, and you will be continuing your Quran journey with us. And we make dua for you, but we also ask you to make dua for us. Because maybe in some ways Allah has given you a greater eyesight, if not eyesight, but sight, than many of us that are also seeking Him right here. And that's the ability to see Him clearly, directly from the heart.
We can speak about hadith on that also, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you don't see Him, know that He sees you. Every single day that hadith should be playing in the back of your head. It's not just in class or at a Friday Jummah. Every single day the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam should be playing in the back of your head. It's the only way that you're going to develop an attachment to the message that he brought. It's the only way. And if you develop a love for the message, surely you have an even greater love for the messenger.
Absolutely. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm going to say shukran to you
Afwan, Sister
for
Tasleema.
joining us. I think it's the first of a few, inshallah.
Not a problem.
But we thank you for being so generous in sharing your journey and inspiring us with your openness.
I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the fact that we've made concessions to still keep me here, because like I've said, that if anybody were to ask if there was goodness in this world, I would direct them to the Icon building, the 3rd floor, Madina Institute. That's where you'll find the goodness in this world. At least that's the one example of goodness that I can tell you where exactly to find it. No lie. No lie on there. Uqsimu billah.
Subhanallah. Shukran so much, Imran Gallo. May Allah bless you. Ameen.
Barakallah, Sister Tasleema.